My name's Michelle Rosato, and I work at the Connecticut Department of Education. I wanted to thank all of you for joining today for the Spring 2025 Connecticut SAT School Day Test Coordinator Training. Just as a reminder, this training is being recorded and it will be posted to the Connecticut SAT School Day webpage. Participants on the call are muted, and you also do not have access to your camera. However, you should have access to the chat, so please feel free to put your questions into the chat, and we can also utilize the raise your hand feature, and I can unmute your microphone if when we have time for questions. So that's also something that's available to everyone. Additionally, before we get started, I just wanted to recognize school counselors. Last week was National School Counselors Week. Thank you so much for the work that you do on behalf of our students. Deirdre and I and James also have high school students, so we know the great work that's done by school counselors, and not just school counselors, but administrators, and whatever role you're in, you're really contributing to the growth of our students and making them better people as they go into the world. So thanks for that. All right, I'm gonna throw it over to the people that from the State Department of Education that are on the call with me, and then the team from College Board. I'm gonna let James introduce them. So I know that Deirdre and Abe are on, so if they want to unmute and just say hi, that would be great.
Thanks, Michelle. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for participating in today's training, and I'd also like to echo my thanks and sentiment to all of the work that you do each and every day on behalf of our students. So thank you. And I work with Michelle and the College Board on behalf of student accessibility and accommodation related issues. So if you have any questions along the way, I'm always available via phone and email. Thank you. Abe?
Hi, thanks, Dee. Yeah, everyone, thank you for attending today's webinar to make testing a success this spring. And thanks also to the awesome CSDE team. Michelle and Deirdre make the things go around for us here. Really appreciated y'all, your work, and also the College Board team. Thanks. We had a successful in-person workshop yesterday, and I bet you that today is going to be even more successful. So thank you again for taking the time for attending. James?
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Deirdre, Abe, I'll just quickly echo all of the thanks that everyone said earlier, and then move straight on because we do have a lot of content to go over in a short amount of time. But I would like to introduce a few of my colleagues who are out and about or on the call. First, out and about, many of you know Diana Frank. She's our Senior Director for K-12 State and District Partnerships. She's the one out and about today. She works with us a little bit on SAT, but also with PSAT and AP. So please reach out to Diana if you have questions in those arenas, and I'm sure you will get to know her as you work with those different College Board classes and assessments. Then I want to introduce two people who are on the call and ask them to come off and say hello. They will be helping with answer some of the questions in the chat. So I'm going to keep streaming through content, but if you have questions, pop them in the chat. They will answer them there. So if you hear Dominique Bernard or Keisha Smith answering in the chat, know that's official College Board responses for you. Dominique, do you want to come off and say hello?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dominique Bernard. I am a state implementation manager along with James, and I will be supporting Connecticut and answering questions today. So nice to be here.
And then she can answer lots of questions because she's been with College Board longer than Dominique and I combined, but she is closest to the work with accommodations. Keisha Smith, you want to say hello?
Good morning, everyone. Keisha Smith, Senior Director for SSD. Work very closely with James and Dominique, and as well as the Connecticut DOE team, especially Deirdre. Looking forward to answering any questions that you have today, and thank you for joining.
So with that, let's jump right into things. Just a reminder, today's session is focused on the Connecticut SAT School Day. So that's what's provided for free by CSDE for all grade 11 students. You have the dates for Connecticut's testing window up there, March 3rd through April 23rd, and you can test on any school day in that window. There's no special dates for makeups or retest, but we do recommend that you save the latter dates for the retest. Don't do your initial testing on April 21st or 22nd or 23rd, because what if, I get the flu and I'm out those 3 days? I just missed my chance to test. So please do your initial testing earlier, save the later dates for makeups or retest. That stated, you can test morning, afternoon, both. That's up to you. Keep in mind, though, any breaks that you have coming up, not just spring breaks, but also if there's any holidays or special events that would have a lot of staff or students out. So some of the Western states I work with, they actually have a rodeo day. It's not an official school holiday, but a lot of staff and students are out. Sometimes it's even a school field trip. Keep those things in mind as you schedule your dates. And we went through a whole bunch of people, and now you're probably like saying, well, which one of them do I contact and when do I contact them and for what? This slide, and again, Michelle said this deck is available for you already on the Connecticut website. This slide helps walk you through. Basically, on the left-hand side, you see the Connecticut education icon. If you have a state policy or procedure question, in other words, it has nothing to do with the College Board platform, it has nothing to do with the College Board policy, please contact Michelle, or especially with special accommodations, Deirdre, and you have their contact information there. Bottom right, there you see the College Board icon. If you have a College Board policy or procedure question, including troubleshooting on test day, please call that state-specific number or email our Connecticut SAT at College Board email address. Obviously, if you're troubleshooting on test day, don't email, call. We direct you there because that's a team that you're calling. So somebody will always pick up. Whereas if somebody calls me right now for the next hour and a half, I'm not answering my phone. I can't answer that. But if you call that number, you're going to get a team. Somebody's going to pick up, and it's the fastest way to get an immediate answer or response. If either Michelle and Deirdre or the College Board state-specific customer support can't answer a question, that's why we have those arrows coming up to Diana, Keisha, myself, Dominique. They'll elevate those questions to us, and we'll be back in touch with you for a response, especially if it's something that's a little bit more complicated, or even if it's not, even if they're able to answer your question, they'll watch for drivers and say, hey, James, we've got 6 questions on this same issue today from 6 different districts. That helps us say, let's create a new resource. Let's alter our training, or even let's make some changes to our platform. Many of you know, embed text-to-speech this year is embedded in Blue Book. No special configurations on the computer. Part of that came because of the feedback we got as people were calling those numbers. Also, we're watching our systems and might notice things that has us proactively reach out to you. So, for example, people had to update their College Board professional account this year to get access to our systems. We made it so that all systems can be accessed directly from your dashboard in your College Board professional account, but that required an updating of that account. So we watched who didn't update their account, by the new year, and our team was reaching out, calling people, not to harass them, but to say, hey, we noticed you didn't update your College Board account. Do you need help? So
I just want to jump in here too and just say, if you're not sure whether it's a College Board question or a state question, you can definitely always start with me or Deirdre, and then we will try to work with you to get an answer. And if we don't know, we will, talk to somebody, because there's a lot of other people. There's someone specifically on board this year just to help with technical issues. So please definitely don't ever hesitate to ask a question, or if you have a concern about a student not being approved for accommodations and things like that, please reach out to us. We don't want you to wait around and wondering why you haven't heard, because testing is going to be happening soon, and we want everyone to test when you want them to test. So please reach out. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. And when you do reach out, you might say, to help College Board or to help CSDE understand this question, I need to provide some information about a particular student. We just want to put a critical note about that here before we begin, really, that student personally identifiable information should not be sent to us in writing. For CSDE, if you want to send the SACID, that's okay. But for College Board, even that, we have consider as PII that we can't have in writing. So do give us a call at that number that I provided. You can provide that information over the phone, and then we can look up things as needed. If you're like, but I've got such a long list of students here, it's really a hassle to say them all over the phone. That's okay. Still give us a call, and we will walk you through how you can provide that information to us in a more efficient way, but without it, being open and out there on an email.
And in
So-
terms of sending the questions to Deirdre or I, if you would just include their SACID, that's all that we need, and we can look them up in the system. We'll know exactly who they are. So sending a SACID via email is perfectly fine. And I know a lot of you want to do that. You want to check what grade is this student in. I think they're in 11th grade. And then I might check in PSIS, and I'll tell you they're in 12th grade. That's why they're not showing up. So just send the SACID. That works perfectly fine, and that is perfectly okay to do. The other thing is there's a few questions popping up in the chat for mostly about special populations. So I'm not sure. I think Keisha was going to address those, but just letting you know that there's a few that are in there.
Great. So Keisha, as you're answering those in the chat, if there's anything that you think we need to address verbally, let me know.
I will address one thing very quickly, James. I just wanted to mention just a reminder about the deadline. So with the SSD deadline having passed, it was on 1/13. So any submissions that for the SSD coordinator, right? Different role. For the SSD coordinator, the submissions would need to have met 1/13. Anything that comes after, the expectation is that typically those students would test the following week, still within the testing window, but anyone that met the 1/13 deadline, they're guaranteed their decisions prior to week 1 of testing scheduled to start.
Great, thanks. And we'll actually hit on that a little bit here on our next couple slides, because we just went through the teams of support that you have at College Board and at Connecticut. You do at the State Department. You also are a team back at your school. You're not doing this alone. Test coordinators, I think of them as the Nick Sirianni. They're the head coach of the Eagles for administering the SAT at your school. But you do have an offensive line coach. You have a defensive line coach. You have those people who, you know football, you know how to manage a team, but your offensive line coach knows offensive line better than you do. Similarly, you're the school test coordinator. You have all these responsibilities, and you are overseeing everyone else at your school. But your SSD coordinator, they know accommodations better than you. They know the students' accommodations better than you. Everybody needs to stay in their lane, and they also need to be talking to one another. So things that you should be discussing here as you're going through, think about rooms that you might need. So you'd be talking with your SSD coordinator and say, okay, what are students' IEPs? What special rooms do I need to set up? Which room is best for this particular accommodation? So for example, extended time this year, your SSD coordinator knows from the workshops that we did in the fall and the Q&A we did in January, that extended time, students can now end that early during the test. So they have to sit all the way through until standard time expires. But after that, if they want to use 5 minutes of their extended time and then move on, great. 10 minutes, great. The whole of their extended time, that's fine. But with that, which was kind of requested by staff and students, great benefit, but it brings up some classroom management issues. So your SSD coordinator might say, you know, we have this room over here that has 3 exits, one on each of 3 of the 4 walls. Can we use that room for the extended time students? Because then there's 3 ways for students to get out of the room without disturbing other people. Right? And they might further think about seating. I know that Dominique is a very conscientious student, and she often likes to use all of her extended time. I'll sit her in the middle of the room. Whereas James, he'd rather not have come in for the test at all. So I'm going to sit him on the periphery, close to an exit. So as soon as he has a chance to leave and he clicks that button, he can go. It's those sort of conversations you want to be having with your coordinators now. And also making sure that they have those conversations with one another. As I flip to this next slide, you see it's the technology coordinator. You want to make sure your SSD coordinator is speaking closely with your technology coordinator. Yes, the tech coordinator has all these responsibilities to make sure operating systems are up to date, Blue Book's correctly installed, all of that. But it's also critical that they understand which students' IEPs require assistive technology, and especially when it's external assistive technology, something that's not embedded in Blue Book, and then they get everything configured correctly and set up for that student to test successfully on test day. Technology coordinators should also be selecting who their technology monitors are in consultation with you. Remember, the technology monitor does not need to be an IT person. They just need to be someone that you feel is a responsible adult who you trust to read basically about a 1-page troubleshooting guide, which is in the Proctor manual, and all our manuals and guides are now posted on the CSDE webpage, to read that and be able to use it as a triage document. So, for example, let's say Keisha's proctoring a test room and Deirdre's in there working away, but something technically happens with her computer. And Keisha comes, she takes a look, and she's like, I can't solve this in 60 seconds. I don't want to, postpone Deirdre's testing any more than that. I don't want to disturb the other people testing in the room. I'm going to send Deirdre out into the hall where the hall monitor will make sure she gets to the help room that's staffed by our technology monitor. That technology monitor will now look at Deirdre's problem with that 1-page troubleshooting guide in mind. And she's going to say, one of 3 things. I understand this problem. It's pretty common. I can use my troubleshooting guide. I can have her up and running in 5 minutes. And then once I do that, I know from my conversation with my test coordinator and my technology coordinator before we ever started testing what our school's procedure is after that. Maybe you have them stay in the help room to finish testing. Maybe you send them to a late room. Maybe you send them back to their original room. That's for you to decide based on what's most efficient for your students, staff, and space. Okay, but you want that decided now in advance. So the technology monitor might make that decision, or they might look and say, oh no, I don't think I know how to solve this using the troubleshooting guide. It's one of 2 things. They'll decide either A, it is a College Board platform issue, in which case they will call the number that I gave you before and work with College Board staff to troubleshoot. Or it'll be B, no, this is not a College Board issue. This is our computer issue. I don't know. Maybe Deirdre, you know how she is. She downloaded a whole bunch of games on her computer that morning before coming to school and ate up all the RAM. So that's going to be something that she'll say, I need to talk to the technology coordinator about and get her a different device or do a device swap or whatever. Okay. The other 2 roles that you see on here, proctor and room hall monitor, their roles really go on like time immemorial. I'll say almost all the way back till Socrates. They are walking the space, having an eye on the students, seeing who raises their hand, who looks sick, who's passing notes, all of those things. None of those tasks go away or have changed. They do have now that added insight of Test Day Toolkit, which allows them to look in and see what is happening on a student's computer. But I think of Test Day Toolkit as just a window that allows that view in, okay? So, whereas Blue Book, the testing app on which is downloaded onto students' computers and on which students are taking the test, because that's downloaded onto their computers, once they start the test, they don't need the internet. They don't need it again until they're ready to submit answers. So if you lose the internet, they can keep testing, even though Test Day Toolkit is cloud-based. It's intentionally cloud-based so that proctors, room monitors, they can use it on any type of devices that are moving around and whatever. That's an advantage. But the disadvantage is if they lose internet, they no longer can look through that window. It's as if a window shade came down. But think of a physical room, right? If you're standing outside the room and somebody closes the window shade, you can't see what's happening in that room, but that doesn't mean everybody inside is frozen in time or disappeared or something like that. No, the students are still right there, taking their test, moving along. Do not stop them. When you get the internet back, whether because your Wi-Fi turned back on or because you chose to connect using your hotspot on your phone, whatever, you'll have that window shade go up and you'll be able to see in again. All right. So that's all the roles on your team. How are people eligible for those roles? Well, I mean, there's a criteria that makes them good for those roles, right? They're your staff, they're adults, all those things. I'm not going to go through all of that. What I want to focus on more with this slide is what makes them ineligible. Okay, so you've got all the rules here. You can review them on your own. What I want you to take away is the guiding principle, and that is you cannot have an adult staff member have a conflict of interest vis-a-vis any student they are overseeing. So let's say Dominique's daughter is taking the PSAT in the same building where she's the test coordinator for the SAT. No problem, because she's overseeing a different test. The digital test is individualized for each student. She has no access to the PSAT. If she had access, it's no reciprocal access. She's fine. She can be a test coordinator for the SAT. Even if her daughter's taking the test, taking the PSAT in the same building. She could be the test coordinator even if her daughter's taking the SAT, as long as it's not in her building. A proctor could even proctor the SAT on the same day that their child is taking the SAT, as long as they're not proctoring the same room. Okay? Because again, with the digital test, the individuation, there's no conflict of interest there. Test coordinators have more possibilities for conflict of interest because they oversee, amend, and approve all irregularity reports. Okay, so that's why they cannot be a proctor for the same exam that they have a family member taking in their building. Because let's say, James's dad is a test coordinator and James was cheating during the test. James's dad gets that irregularity report. There's a temptation to fudge what it says on there, right? So guiding principle, no conflict of interest. Now we're going to get into the technical meat and potatoes of our agenda. And we're going to move, a lot of these are screenshots, so we will move pretty quickly through them. First, we do want you to understand all of our test administration systems and then how students are registered, so you understand how these different systems work together. Then we're going to go directly into Test Day Toolkit, so you understand how to digitally prepare your room, staff, and students. After that, we want you to understand what we went over with tech coordinators during that tech coordinator webinar a couple weeks ago. We're not going to go through all the details on that. We just want to make sure that you understand what was covered with them and what they should have at their disposal. And you want to make sure now that they're using those resources. We're going to go screen by screen through the digital readiness check, because it's always easier to prevent a problem than to have to troubleshoot a problem. Then we'll go through what happens on test day screen by screen. First for proctors in test day toolkit, and then second for students in Blue Book. I do have Q&A posted at the bottom, but this session is a half an hour shorter than any of the live ones that we did yesterday. So Q&A, please put in the chat and my colleagues will answer as we go. So test administration systems and student registration. We have systems of SSD Online, the State Data Management System, Test Day Toolkit, and Blue Book. So let's look at the function of each and how they interact. So I've divided those systems here into 3 categories: submitting information, managing information, and then using that information to administer or take the test. So for submitting information, there's 2 systems in play. I'm actually going to say first is SSD Online. That's where you put all accommodations requests. And what you put in there, and any accommodations that are approved, are available not just for the SAT, but for all College Board assessments. So if it's on a student's IEP or a 504, you really do not want to, it should be an SSD Online and should not be removed from SSD Online. It needs to stay there so it's available for all College Board assessments, AP, PSAT, all of that, okay? It was asked earlier, and Keisha pointed out, the deadline for submitting new requests for the SAT was January 13th. That doesn't mean that if you have something to request now, you cannot do it. Not at all. It meant that we wanted you to submit by January 13th accommodation request for every student that you knew at that point in time was enrolled with you and whose IEPs and 504s you were aware of and knew what accommodations to request. That way, if there has to be some back and forth with College Board or CSDE or between the two about approving that accommodation, we've got plenty of time to do so. That's 1. But also 2, it's so that if you have closer to testing, if you have here in February, some new students move into your district or a new IEP be issued, or, there's a sports injury and, somebody has a concussion and you have to put in for a temporary accommodation request, you're not trying to handle that sudden new thing at the same time that you're handling all of these accommodation requests that you could have done back in January. That's the reason for the deadline. So if you do have something new come up now, please just get it into us as soon as possible. And you might even want to call that number or send an email to that CTSAT at College Board email address we gave to say, hey, heads up, we had a change in circumstances. I just submitted a new SSD request. Okay, so that's where accommodation request information goes. The other piece is student registration data gets submitted to College Board directly by CSDE. So you are not ordering, schools and districts are not ordering tests. They are not registering students. You just need to make sure that all the information in PSIS is correct, okay? The state is uploading that information now on a weekly basis, and when we come to the testing window, it will be on a daily basis. Information flows from here into our state data management system almost instantaneously. I'm going to say next day, so that, if you put new information into PSIS on Monday, the state may not get around to uploading it till the end of the day, right? So we don't want you to expect it. Oh, I put it in at 9 a.m. Why is it not there by noon? Give it until the next day to see it in the state data management system. Information flows from SSD Online into the state data management system upon approval. Okay, so it's also almost instantaneously once the accommodation has been approved. Then
I'm
you
just
can
gonna
manage.
jump in. I just want to jump in here for a second because I want to go back to when you talked about the PSIS upload
Mhm.
from CSDE, because we had a question and I know I just want to clarify, put it into an email, but I know you get bombarded with a lot of information in your roles. So at this point, the CSDE is submitting a new file from PSIS every Tuesday. So today there's a new one going from PSIS into SDMS and then eventually into Test Aid Toolkit. So if you have changes, kids moving grades because their credits changed, new kids, kids moving out, all the different ways that PSIS could change, you should see those changes impacted in the next day or two. And then once testing starts, we'll be submitting a new file every day to account for any of those types of changes. If you have questions about why a student is not showing up in file, feel free to, excuse me, send me an email with the SACIDs, and I'm happy to look it up in PSIS and let you know. Additionally, if you are also the coordinator for the NGSS and you have access to Tide under Cambium, that is a nightly push from PSIS, so you can check in there, and that would actually show you how they're showing up in PSIS if you want it in more real time at this point. So thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. So once information is in the state management system, you can do a few things there. One is you can review it and make sure it's accurate and correct. And if it's not, go back to PSIS, see if it's accurate there, work with CSDE to make sure that, that it is. Later, you'll be able to view and review students' testing status, okay? But the two actions you can take in Connecticut are to force match accommodations or to waive accommodations. So first, force match accommodations is what you would do if these two pieces of submitted information don't wind up married together in the student's record. That's not an error. That's not a mistake. Okay. It occurs sometimes by design when the system cannot quite confirm that the two records in these two systems are actually for the same student. Why might that happen? Well, remember, I said SSD Online, those are accommodation requests available for all College Board assessments. So let's imagine that Keisha, you put her into SSD Online when she was in 9th grade and took AP World History. And now her student registration data is being uploaded for the SAT as an 11th grader. Something may have changed in Keisha's student record in those 2 years. And just enough that the system says, I cannot be 100% sure this is the same person. I want someone at the school who knows the student and knows their accommodations to look at this record and confirm for me that this is the same person and force me to match their accommodations. That's the one activity you can do in the state data management system. The other is to waive an accommodation just for the SAT. So, for example, if a student wants a particular accommodation for everything that's a written test, like the AP exams, but they don't want that accommodation on a multiple choice test, like the SAT, with guardian or student, if they're over 18, consent, you could waive the accommodation in the state data management system just for the SAT. You never delete anything out of SSD Online unless their IEP or 504 has actually changed. Any changes in the state data management system, whether that's because the state did a new upload and there was a change in the student's record for the new upload, or because you did something like force match an accommodation or you waived an accommodation, please allow one full business day to go by before testing the student and expecting their information to show correctly in Test Day Toolkit and in their exam in Blue Book. So in other words, let's say I force matched the student's accommodations today, Tuesday. I'd want to let the one full business day of Wednesday go by and then test them on Thursday. That's when I should expect to see their information updated in Test Day Toolkit and in their actual exam in Blue Book. So
And
let's move on.
To jump in real quick here, just wanted to just again emphasize the fact that you cannot make any changes to student data in SDMS. You can only force match and waive the accommodations in SDMS, and you can look at the data, but the only way to change the data is to get in touch with your district's PSIS coordinator and have them change the data, because that's where it's coming from. So this is different from PSAT when you're actually managing everything yourself through SOAR. We are managing the data. We're trying to control it by having it as clean as it can be by using PSIS. So just wanted to make sure that you understand that you can't change anything in the data.
Great. So let's look at how to get into these systems. We're going to look first at getting into the state data management system, which, like Michelle said, is where you can review data and you can take the two actions of force match accommodations or waive accommodations. But for you test coordinators, your way of getting into everything is going to be the same. And that is your College Board educator account. So here's the URL to go to log into College Board educator account. You can click either sign in button. Then you would click the educator button. Enter your email address that you have associated with your College Board professional account. Hit next. Then you would select My Dashboard. So Test Day Toolkit, State Data Management System, SSD Online. If you have that access, all of it is through your dashboard pictured here in your College Board professional account. So you can see I've outlined here, State Data Management System. You click that and it brings you straight in. The first time you do it, you'll have to review the terms and conditions. It's basically that you won't be using any information that you see therein for any purposes other than testing your students. And it's personally identifiable information like we went over at the beginning and should be treated as such. Once you accept those conditions, you'll go to the home page. So let's see the basic navigation around the state data management system. As I said, it's going to default bring you to the home page, which will give you some summary data here. We're going to review that in a moment. But you'll have this main navigation bar, which will appear at the top of every page that you go to. So you can use that to move along to other areas. Again, for the state of Connecticut, you don't have all of the functionality. So you'll see them, but when you click on the menu items, they will be grayed out. We're not going to go through grayed out items for Connecticut. We're going to focus on what you can do. So one is you can switch between any roles that you have. So we have some test coordinators that are doing that role for multiple AI codes, or they're doing multiple roles at an AI code. So if you come over here where it says role and you click on that, you can see your roles and switch between them. Sometimes people will come on and say, I'm not seeing my students for XYZ. You want to make sure that you've clicked here and you've gone in for the appropriate school and role. You'll typically see one role for each school or AI code that you're associated with, and it will be the role that has the most permissions. So for example, if you are both the test coordinator and the SSD coordinator, it will probably say SSD coordinator for you at that school. Why? Because in a lot of other states, only SSD coordinators have the permission to do force matching and waiving accommodations. So it's defaulted to what is generally the most powerful role. I guess if we were playing chess, she would be like the queen. Keisha, you wanted to say something?
I did, James. Apologies for the interruption, only because I'm seeing a pattern of a question and it's easier for me to respond here. So there was a question in terms of testing students together that have different accommodations. So for example, can students with screen readers or text to speech test in the same room with students that have extended time? And I think that's a really great question. So yes, and Deirdre did touch on this in response to another educator who had asked earlier. You can test in students in the same room. We do ask that you are, again, collaborating with the SSD coordinator in advance to know who receives what types of accommodations. The flexibility is there where you can test them differently, testing them all in the same room, but that's going to depend on the size of the room. Remember that you also have the testing window if there's a concern about limited staff or rooms in order to seat the students. Your screen reader and text-to-speech students, these students are receiving a read aloud audio accommodation. They do function slightly different. Again, it's more about connecting with the SSD coordinator, right? Because a lot of this was covered heavily in our previous SSD webinars. But these read aloud accommodations require for students to wear headphones. So that would be different, of course, from a student who may just have extended time by itself and nothing else. But thinking about, what will work best for your students will be a collaborative effort at the school level. So mentioning this person's question, as far as, yes, they appear to be a testing group. Technically, because you want to plan the rooms to, model it where text to speech students test together, screen reader students test together. But we do allow the flexibility at the local level. We're not forcing you to have the separate rooms. But again, it's all about the flexibility of the testing window as well, because you do not have to test all your students starting week 1 of the March testing window. So think about what's going to work best, and also knowing that with extended time as an accommodation by itself, the screen reader automatically includes extended time. Text to speech embedded does not automatically include time unless this is a student that also needs additional time, right? So these are things, again, I don't want to open a bubble of concerns for folks, because this is also being covered at the school level by the person who's a designated SSD coordinator. Some of you may be wearing many hats and maybe in a dual role with that, but thinking about the needs of the student, who needs to maybe utilize more of their time. I know James gave like a quick example of that before, right? So that's how you're thinking about the planning of your rooms. And then, of course, your standard time testers who are not receiving any time, those students, they're taking a shorter version of that test. So that's why having more than one room would be ideal. But if you're going to need to test some of these students in the same room, maybe considering early the larger rooms that would be available so that you can space these kids out properly in order to minimize any risk of disruption. I did share in the chat, and I will be very brief because I know we have to move on. I did share in the chat like a quick guidance that we had drafted up just to explain how to assist you with the preparation, but it's still being determined at the local level. And I will make sure that we get that additional resource to Deirdre and Michelle where they can give a version of that document posted to the state DOE's intranet site.
Thanks, Keisha. And that actually emphasizes what we said at the beginning of that you are a team, and please be in discussions with your team members. So test coordinator, SSD coordinator, et cetera. And then for both that situation or where you're wearing both hats, it's critical that if you were not able to attend, or if you haven't seen, please watch the recordings and look at the decks for both our SSD coordinator webinar and our SSD coordinator Q&A that we had in December and January, respectively. They are on the CSDE website. They go into detail on all of this, including screenshots and how to do things. So I'm not going to spend more time on this slide because I've had it up for a while Keisha was talking. So I trust people have taken an opportunity to see what the dashboard view is like and what all is there. Let's drill down a little bit. If you click the student roster, you get a similar dashboard type of summary. Okay. But you can, and districts get that as well, and they can download that summary by school. But below the school summary, you can scroll down and see the student roster listing every student. So this is right below. If you click student roster, you would see the summary first, and then we've just scrolled down here to see the actual list of students. I've outlined, there's a chevron here pointing horizontally. If you click that, it opens up a filters tab that then you can use those filters to find a student or a select group of students. Once you found a student that you want to know more about, click the plus sign to the left of their name, and you can see all of their student record information. We're going to take a closer look at that. Here's that chevron pointing horizontally. If we click on it, this is the filters tab that pops up. And you would just fill that in, and it would filter your roster for just what you asked for. This time, it's going to find all students with the last name of Petri. Okay. Here's all of your filter options listed here. So, for example, if you're like, oh, I was just talking to Keisha, I want to look up all the students with text-to-speech, you could use the accommodations filter. If you want to look for a specific student, you could use any of this personally identifiable information. Okay. If you are looking at this at a district level and you just want to look at information from one of your schools, well, you could put in that school's AI code or their state school code and use the filters as such. You can download your roster. Okay, so all of the information that you see here, you can download into an Excel spreadsheet that you can then use as you wish. And as we talked about, I'm just going back, if we clicked on the plus sign to the left of any student's name, as I said, it will open up their entire student record, which is divided into 4 sections. The first section provides all of the students' personally identifiable information. That's their student details. Then second, it provides all of their school information. Third, their testing information. What tests are they taking? What's their registration number? That's a great thing to look up. Sometimes you have a question about something, you need some help, you're calling that state number, having the student's registration number. It's a great piece of information to provide so we can assist you. It's also a great piece of information for later down the road. The student might come to you with a question about their scores or something like that. Having their registration number is critical. And then there's an additional information section, which some of our states use for demographics, not in the state of Connecticut. So you don't have to worry about that as much. That's reviewing all the information. Now we want to get into those 2 functions that we said you can do in the state data management system in the state of Connecticut. First is that force matching of accommodations. As I said before, it's outlined here. This is not a mistake. It's not that, oh, something was broken and it didn't match the students' accommodations. No, between whenever things were entered in SSD online and when this for any College Board assessment. So it could have been done as a 9th grader for AP World History. And when they were registered for the SAT as an 11th grader, there was some slight discrepancy in their data that made the system say, I cannot be 100% certain this is the same student. I want someone at the school who knows this student and their accommodations to verify for me that this is the same student. And once they're satisfied, they can force match. So this is by design and it's very easy to do. Okay, click that chevron so you can see the filters when you're in the student roster. Use the filters to find the student you're looking for. Click that plus sign to the left of their name so that you can open up their student record. Scroll down to the section that's student details. It's actually the first section, so you don't have to scroll far. You just want to see the box for their SSD ID. If they don't have their accommodations showing, that box will be blank. It will be empty. And if you are the test in Connecticut, if you're the test coordinator or the SSD coordinator, it will be white. It will not be grayed out. You will be able to type into it. Put into that box their SSD ID number from SSD Online. Then click Save. When you click Save, you will get a pop-up saying, are you absolutely sure this is the same student? If you are, you click Force Match, and then their accommodations will be matched. Remember, you have to allow a full business day to pass before that will be reflected in Test Day Toolkit or on the student's test in Blue Book. In the state data management system, it will show a yellow banner saying this record is locked until this is processed. In those other systems, you're just waiting for that business day to pass. So again, if you did that today, Tuesday, you would have let Wednesday go by, that's your full business day, and look to test them on Thursday or later. That waiting one full business day is the same thing you will do if you waive accommodations. And again, waiving accommodations is something you do only in the state data management system. You don't delete anything from SSD Online. You want to keep all the accommodations that are on that student's IEP or 504 and been approved in SSD Online, so they're available for other College Board assessments like the AP exams. But if the student doesn't want the accommodation for the SAT, they can waive it. And you do that action in the state data management system. Get consent. If the student's 18 or over, they can consent themselves. If not, you need the guardian's consent, but you want that consent in writing. You don't have to submit it to us. We won't ask for it, but you should have it. The way you technically do this, very simple. Same way, you go to your student roster, you click on the chevron so you can see the filters, put in the filters, the information you want so you can find that student. Click the plus sign to the left of their name. Scroll down and see student details. See where the SSD ID is? That's this is the field that we use when we were force matching. So it's right near that. Just to the right and a little down, there's a tick box that says waive accommodations. You need to tick that box first. Sometimes people call and say, I don't have permission. I can't waive accommodations. And then we look, they just didn't tick this box. It's a roadblock. It's to make it intentionally difficult to waive accommodations because we really want people to think about it and do it with extreme caution. Okay. It's not something to be taken lightly. Counsel the student, counsel their family, get consents. Okay, but once you tick this tick box, these toggles then become active and you can toggle them over. If you toggle one over, it turns red and the red letters saying waived will appear next to that accommodation. You don't need to waive all or nothing. You can waive individual accommodations. When you're satisfied, you've configured things the way student wants and has consent for, you then click save and their accommodations will show up as waived after a gap of one full business day. Then you will see it in their record in Test Day Toolkit and on their exam in Blue Book, which brings us to Test Day Toolkit. Let's look at digitally preparing rooms, staff, and students. So we have these 6 tasks that you're going to do before testing within Test Day Toolkit. We're going to look at each of those as screenshots. Okay, so here's a list of what we're going to go through. Let's jump right to the screenshots. First, you're going to access Test Day Toolkit through your College Board professional account, just as we showed earlier for the State Data Management System. Log into your professional account, look at your dashboard, you will see Test Day Toolkit. When you click, you will land here where you can select your test site and then your test administration. Your school's name may appear twice in this dropdown if you are also a weekend test center. The weekend test center has a 5-digit code. Your school for school day testing, though, has a 6-digit AI code. Make sure that you click on the one for the 6-digit AI code. That's what will then enable you to see SAT school day in the test administration dropdown. Once you've selected both of those, you will go to the dashboard. Your name is in the top right with a little person icon. You can click there to switch between roles or AI codes if you are working with multiple programs or if you have multiple roles. You have these big buttons to get to all the different functions, but those buttons are replicated up here on the main navigation bar, which will follow you throughout Test Day Toolkit no matter where you go. So let's look at our first task, which is to view, add, and edit staff. It's pretty simple. From your main navigation bar, click Staff. That will then give you your roster of everybody who has been assigned as a staff member for this test. Okay, so if you haven't assigned anybody yet, this will be blank. If you have, anybody that you have assigned will be here along with their details. If you need to add somebody, click the Add Staff button on the right above the roster. The chevron will give you a drop-down with 3 choices: to import staff from a CSV file, to add staff from a prior test. Okay, so from an existing list, if they tested for you back last fall for the PSAT or last spring for the SAT, they're in here and you can just import them over to be staff for this test, or to manually add staff individually. Once you have staff in the roster, their names are all hyperlinks. So you could click on their name, and then in their individual record, click this button that says Coordinator Tools, and that would enable you to change details about them. Like you could change what room they're assigned to. You could change their role. You could change their phone number or their email. You want to make sure their email matches whatever their email is in their College Board account, though. Otherwise, they will not get access. Okay. So let's look at that directly. If we clicked Add Staff and we selected Import Staff from the CSV file, you'll get this pop-up. There is a hyperlink to the CSV template. Click on that, download the template, fill it out with the staff information, and then drag and drop it up here or click to browse and attach it. The upload button will become active. Click Upload, and those staff will be added for this test administration. If you click Add Staff from an existing list, that will pop up everybody who's in your roster from any test administration. So they're in your Test Day Toolkit. They just haven't been assigned to any test yet because you used them in the past, but it's not going to assume you want to use them in the present. So when it pops this up, anybody you want to add for this test, just click the checkbox to the left of their name. And at the bottom, there'll be an import button. Click that, and they will then be added for this specific test administration. And if you're going to manually add staff, you'll get a pop-up with a little table that you can just fill out the information. Keep clicking Add Row at the bottom left if you have more and more and more that you want to add. When you're done, click Add Staff to Roster on the bottom right, and they will be added to your roster for this test. Viewing, adding, and editing rooms is very similar. So from your masthead, obviously, now you click Rooms. You'll get a very similar roster. If you want to add rooms, you have an Add Rooms button, same place, top right, right above the roster. When you click the chevron, here you get two options: to import rooms from a prior test that you gave, or to create an absolutely new room. Once you have rooms added for an administration, they will appear in your roster. They will give details in the other columns, like how many seats are assigned to that room, how many of those seats have been taken, what's the testing group, what staff you have assigned to the room. The room, again, just like staff names, they are hyperlinks. So you could click on that, see the room's details, and in that record, click this button, Coordinator Tools, that has the little wrench on it. And then you could change the details, like assign a different testing group or add more seats. So when you click to add rooms, if you selected the first option to import rooms, it would say, oh, okay, well, here's the different tests you already gave. Tell us which test you want to import rooms from. You select that test, and then it will say, oh, these are the rooms that you had. Go ahead and click Import Rooms, and those same rooms with those details are now available for the SAT. If you chose to create a new room, you get a table just exactly similar to if you are adding staff manually. But this time, you're adding just the room name and the capacity. If you have more rows, if you have more rooms you need to add, then you have rows, just hit Add Row. When you're done, you would click Create Rooms at the bottom right. That will become active, an active button, as soon as you've completed at least one row of rooms. Now, the viewing the student roster and its details obviously gets a little more complicated because there's a lot of details there. But we will get through it. So, first off, you want to see your student roster from your main navigation bar. Right here where I have the number 1, click All Students. That will then pop up your student roster. This will automatically be populated with everyone who is in your state data management system uploaded by Connecticut State Department of Education. If you want to find a specific student, right here where I have the letter A, there is a box to search for students. You could put in a registration number, you could put in student name, and find that specific student. You have columns with details about each student record. You can control how many columns you see here and what information you see. You click this columns button right below where I have B, and it will give you a pop-up listing all the available columns and information, and you just click what you do or do not want. To the right of the columns button, right along where I have the letter C, you can choose how many rows of students you want to see on each page, 30, 60, 90, or 120. Now, if you want to do something with any one or any group or the entirety of your students, you could click the checkbox next to those students' names, or if you're selecting everybody, click the checkbox to the left of the heading row, and all will be checked. And then there's a Choose Action button, which is up here at 2A. My apologies, because of this column pop-up, it's blocking the words Choose an Action, but this is where it is. You will see it when you're working. You click the chevron to then select what action you want to take with the students that you checked off. Most commonly, what you're doing is assigning them to a room. So if you wanted these first 5 students assigned to a room, you would click the checkbox to the left of their name, come up here, click the chevron, select move to a room. Then you'll get a pop-up listing all your rooms. Then you'd select which room you want to move them to, say move, and away they go. All right. Lastly, once you have students in your roster, you'll see every name is a hyperlink. So again, you can click on that name to see the details for that student. Sometimes we've had people call and say, oh, some of my students' names, the hyperlink's purple and some of them's blue. What does that mean? It just means that at some point in time you clicked on the hyperlink. Just want to point that out because we have gotten those calls. Nothing to worry about. It just means that you've looked at that student's record sometime. Now, downloading and printing information from Test Day Toolkit. There's 3 main things that you can do. The most critical one is sign-in tickets, because that's what students are going to use, both for the digital readiness check and for signing in on test day. But we're going to look at all 3 of these pieces of information that you can download and print. So see these options from your main navigation. You will click downloads, and then you see the 3 options available. I said printing the test tickets is the most critical. That's the one everybody's going to have to do. Okay, you will need to give students their sign-in test tickets. Once you selected that option, you can either sort the tickets by room, or you can sort tickets alphabetically. And you can choose how you want them laid out. Either 4 to a page, and then you cut them apart, 2 to a page, and then you cut them apart, but only half as often, or 1 to a page. Excuse me. Now, when are you going to print out sign-in tickets? You are going to print them out prior to doing your digital readiness check. The digital readiness check is something we recommend that you do 1 to 2 weeks before testing students to make sure all devices are operating properly, all accommodations are listed properly, that Blue Book was properly installed, and that students have an opportunity to work within Blue Book, become familiar with it, comfortable, ask questions, all of those pieces. Okay. Again, I'll emphasize several times, it is far easier to prevent a problem than to troubleshoot a problem. The digital readiness check does not take long, but sometimes if the things that you discover, and most of the time, most students, they pass the digital readiness check, no problem, device is ready to go. Maybe 2 out of 100 don't make it. But if a device doesn't pass on the digital readiness check for those 2 students, you got 2 weeks to get things remedied, and you're not causing them stress on test day. But if things don't go well, if you don't discover those problems until test day, well, just think of the anxiety you created for that student. So we really want to emphasize, print these sign-in tickets out, hold a digital readiness check 1 to 2 weeks before test day. They will use these sign-in tickets to go into Blue Book and make sure everything's working properly. And then we recommend you collect the sign-in tickets back. It's okay for the students to have that information. There's no security breach. And in fact, the sign-in ticket information enables them to log into Blue Book even without a College Board account, which is great because then they can take practice tests and everything else. But we recommend have them take a picture of their sign-in ticket information. It's less likely that they're going to lose their phone between the digital readiness check and test day than they're going to lose a slip of paper. Also remember, from College Board's perspective, that slip of paper is personally identifiable information. So if they drop it, it's kicking around in the hall, somebody could use it to sign in as that student into Blue Book. They couldn't get in and take a test for them without a room code and start code from a proctor, but it's best to get that back. And it also saves you having to reprint things again. Back to downloading and printing items. From the downloads, you can also click export data, and then you can download an Excel file with all your student roster and information about their room, exam setup status, test status, all listed. And in advance, you can also print a room directory if you have assigned students to rooms, which is optional. You don't have to assign students to rooms, but if you do, you can print out that room directory. There's no personally identifiable information here. You can post it to help students find where they're supposed to go. So the tech specs for test day, we gave a full webinar for your tech coordinators. You can see that recording and you can see that deck from the link here. And again, this deck is posted at the same place. A few things that we want to make sure that you understand, though. Acceptable devices, power requirements, and Wi-Fi accessibility. Okay, so all these types of devices, fine to test on. They could be personal or school, except we don't recommend students walk in with a personal desktop. That's just practical. Will it work? Yeah, but you don't want them doing that. Chromebooks, though, critical. It's got to be school managed. It cannot just school owned, it has to be school managed. That's because Google's operating system is its browser. So Google does not allow any external browser to be downloaded onto their Chromebooks unless it's a secure testing browser being officially put onto that machine by school staff using their Google admin console. Okay. External mice, Bluetooth or wired is permitted. Tablets are optional for keyboards, external keyboards are optional for iPads, but if it's a Windows-based tablet, you must provide a keyboard. You want to have a minimum of 3 hours of battery operation. 4 is preferred. This is, again, that conversation with your team. For students with extended time, extended breaks, or breaks as needed, they might be pushing that 4-hour limit. So you want to make sure they have a room with appropriate access to power, the right number of outlets, power cords, tape down so you don't have tripping hazards, etc. Wi-Fi, again, emphasizing you do not need the internet after the students have started the test. You don't need it again until it's time to submit answers. Okay, so if you lose internet during the test, let the students keep testing. If you don't have the internet at the end, when it's time to submit answers, collect those computers back and hold on to them until you do have the internet. It does not need to be the same IP address. You could go up to Starbucks, have several cups of coffee, and just keep submitting answers, submitting answers, submitting answers, okay? That is different from if there was some sort of problem on submission. So if there was some sort of problem on submission, you will get an email from College Board the following day, typically comes about noon. That would be broken up into 2 categories. The first, it would say, we noticed that you saw you had a problem submitting answers for, and it will list the registration numbers. And say, don't worry, we were able to force submit those answers. We have them. You don't need to take any further action. Or the second section would say, we have not yet been able to force submit answers for these registration numbers. Please take these steps. And it will give you a link for what steps to take to get those answers submitted. If those steps don't work, we will continue to try to force submit those answers on the back end. If not successful, you'll be notified that the student needs to retest. That's in a very minimum number of cases. And that's different. That's usually a singular device issue, as opposed to where, oh, we just lost internet for the whole building. You lose internet for the building, take that computer back, get the internet somewhere, somehow, and start submitting those answers. Here's your minimum bandwidth. Notice that at the top right corner, we're driving you to URLs. It's because we give very basic information here that we know is not going to change. Microsoft changes their systems, Google changes their systems, Apple changes their systems, and then we have to make changes. So we don't want to put something in a static deck that might change. Instead, we drive you to our URLs, which get updated typically the same day that any change happens. So you can always get the latest and greatest information, which is critical here on the installing and maintenance of Blue Book. So for your tech coordinators, they have these slides. Again, we're driving you to URLs. A lot of emphasis, though, that Chromebooks have to be school managed. Okay, so here's the URL. If you're individually downloading Blue Book onto any particular device, except for Chromebooks, that's not allowed. For Chromebooks, they're going to have to push it out en masse using their Google Admin Console. Most of your tech coordinators will be using something similar for whatever device type you have, because it's easier to push it out en masse than to do it on each individual device. Here we're showing you, giving you the URL to see how to do that for each operating system. So that's where they should be going. Ideally, Blue Book should be installed on the same device that the student uses for the digital readiness check and on test day. We understand that's not always possible. Sometimes you're using shared devices with laptop carts. We just want to call to your attention two things. One is if you have a student using external assistive technology, in other words, something has to be set up on their operating system, that student needs to be testing on the same device and using the same device for the digital readiness check. Sometimes that causes an irregularity where, oh, they got a computer all set up appropriately for that student with their external assistive technology, and then they gave them a different computer on test day, and it throws everything off. The second is, if it's a shared laptop, please make sure nothing happens between the first use of testing on that laptop and the second use of testing, whether that is, a student downloaded a whole bunch of games on the computer and it ate up its RAM, or a student tripped and dropped and then kicked the laptop across the room on their way to the laptop cart. Make sure it's functioning appropriately between the two exams. After installing Blue Book, you also want to stay up to date. Our goal is to do no updates to Blue Book once the testing window begins. If necessary, we will, but we look to avoid it. We are doing updates, though, even coming up on February 23rd in anticipation of that. Blue Book will automatically update when you relaunch it. I've never seen it take longer than 2 minutes, but it's still preferable for those 2 minutes not to be on test day. Again, a plug for that digital readiness check. Okay, and here's where your tech staff can see what the current version is, and they can opt in for email notices every time we update. It's also critical for your SSD coordinator and tech coordinator to discuss making sure that the technology is set for all students with accommodations. Again, a plug for our prior SSD coordinator training. You can see it all here. And that walks through our 3 ways of supporting these students in detail. So we have universal accessibility features. Those are features in Blue Book like zoom in, zoom out, option eliminator, embedded calculator that are just available to all students. You don't need to ask for it. They don't need to be approved. They don't need any separate configuration. We then have accessibility tools that are embedded in Blue Book, but only available to students with that approved accommodation, like text-to-speech. If you have the accommodation, it appears for you automatically in Blue Book. If you don't have that approved accommodation, it does not. And then any external assistive technology. That's something that is not provided in Blue Book, but we allow it, whether it's a third-party software or something in the operating system, we allow it to persist into the Blue Book environment. That takes a little bit more setup. And again, we give the URLs on how to do that for each operating system. So your tech coordinators, we've gone through all of that in detail. Okay. Please make sure they have this and are working with this information. Also critical, I have said it several times, the digital readiness check to make sure every device is ready to go. So let's actually excuse me. That's digital readiness check. It's because it's easier to prevent a problem than to troubleshoot a problem. Here we give the resources, including the aforementioned troubleshooting guide in the Proctor's manual. So you have all those links and the phone number, everything else, but I want to focus on how to prevent or ameliorate your needing to call those numbers or use those guides by doing the digital readiness check. We're going to look through slide by slide or screen by screen here. So the whole digital readiness check, the essential part to make sure things are ready to go, just 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, that's all it takes. And you might say, well, then why can't I just do it on test day? It's because it's to catch any problems with a device or a Blue Book installation or accommodations showing up appropriately while you still have time to fix the problem. It's also a chance to give the optional 20 minutes for students to become familiar with Blue Book. It's very easy. When they open Blue Book, click Test Your Device. You don't even need to log in yet. Just click this Test Your Device button. You're going to look for these 3 green check marks. If you don't, that's the device you want to bring to your tech coordinator to either repair or replace. After that, you're going to distribute the sign-in tickets that we talked about. And students are going to use that information, clicking this yellow button, to then enter here their unique user ID and registration number. They will be prompted to read our privacy policy and use of the app. And then they will see this task card with their information and the button to start exam setup. When they click that button, the first thing they're going to ask is to confirm that this is who they are and this is their accommodations. If that's not correct, they're going to click no, and they're going to let the person, the staff member overseeing the digital readiness check, that this is an issue so that you can get it resolved before test day. Assuming that they click yes, that everything is good, they will see this SAT testing rules, don't cheat. Then they'll have the option to opt into Big Future schools. If they don't want to, they just click skip this step, and it carries them on to their score send information. But if they want to opt into Big Future schools, they click enter phone number, and then that's the only information that they need to provide us so that they can have their scores sent directly to their mobile phone without needing a College Board account. Okay, that's the big payoff that most students are looking for, but Big Future does provide a lot of other things that they can research college, career, and scholarship opportunities. It is a robust tool for planning your future. If they did opt into it, they will get the further opportunity to opt into connections. Since we already have their phone number, we don't need anything from them except to check the box saying, yes, I want to participate in connections. If they don't, they just click next. What connections is one step further that enables them to connect directly to colleges that they're interested in and that they think may be interested in them. So the colleges beforehand, they don't know anything about any of these students individually. But they may have said something like, hey, I'm a California college and I'd like to get more students from Connecticut to come out here to my California college. I'm particularly interested in students that got above a 550 on their math SAT. If that's a student's case, they would get information from that college, the college knowing nothing about them and nothing personally. They would see it in their connections, and then they could say, I am interested in this college. I would like to connect to them. Only at that point would the college know anything about them. It's in the student's control to connect. After connecting, they then get the opportunity to do the digital readiness check, the opportunity for their free score sends. This is optional too. They can skip it. It's the only one that really prompts them to, are you sure you want to skip it though? A big part of the SAT is getting scores to send to colleges and scholarship opportunities. It costs money. We're giving you 4 for free. You probably want to do this. And if they decide they want to change which schools, or even if they want to send it to schools later, they can do so. They need their sign-in ticket because this information is tied not just to them, but to this individual exam. So they need their sign-in ticket information, a good plug again to have them take a picture of it during the digital readiness check. Now, on test day, they can't have their cell phone then. But use that sign information to sign back into Blue Book up to 3 days after testing. They go to past test, find the test that they took, click this hyperlink, they can edit their score sends. Then it will tell them what's required, what's allowed, what's prohibited, and their exam setup is complete. You can show them there where they can access full-length practice tests. These are exactly as on the exam on test day, except that they're not timed and it's not a secure browser. They can stop and start anything they like. They can see their results by going to this link, our My Practice, and use that information to then find appropriate questions that they want to practice from our question bank, or to customize a Khan Academy course to help them learn more. So, for example, if they said, I want to practice linear equations because it says I didn't do well on linear equations, they would use our question bank. If they're like, I have no idea what a linear equation is, they would use the Khan Academy course. We are coming up on time. I'm going to go very quickly now through test day screens. I will need about another 5 to 10 minutes. I hope folks can stay on. If not, this is recorded. So proctors test day screen by screen. Proctors, once you have entered them into test day toolkit as your staff, they will get a welcome. They can access either through that welcome, or it will also, they will see their access through their College Board professional account on their dashboard. When they click on, they will see the same screen that you did as a test coordinator. They will choose their test site and their test administration. After that, though, it's a different button. So it shows them, welcome to this room, has this capacity, and that they are the proctor. It will then walk them through 5 very basic screens of making sure that their room is set up. So very simple instruction here. If you want more details, all our manuals and guides, like I said, are posted on the CSDE webpage. After that, they will have the opportunity to verbally and visually provide these directions and this 5-letter room code, which the students will type into Blue Book. After that, they will have their attendance page. So if students were pre-assigned to rooms, they will see those students listed here in the assigned column. If students were not pre-assigned to rooms, this will be blank, but that's okay. As soon as anybody, any student, enters that room code into their Blue Book, they will pop up here for entered room code. So if you decided to move a student at the last minute, or they came late, and so they're not reporting to their room, they're reporting to a late room instead, that's okay. When they enter that room's room code that they're physically sitting in, they will pop up here for the proctor to see. When they first pop in, there will be a button to say for the proctor to mark them as present. They want to visually see that the student is there, the student that they know or whose ID they have checked. They know that they are there, then the proctor will mark them as present. After they're marked as present, then the student will be able to go on in Blue Book to complete a few screens we're going to take a look at for the student screen by screen so that they get ready to test. Once they have finished that 3 to 5 minute process, they will pop over here in the ready to test column. When you see everybody's ready to test, you would click next step. You have 7 lines of directions to read to students before providing them their start code. verbally and visually. Okay. These scripts are also in the proctor's manual, so you can review them in advance, but they don't need to have the manual with them on test day. It will all be in test day toolkit. Once students have entered the 6-digit start code, they are off to testing. Do not stop them from testing, even if you lose the internet. And you, as long as you have the internet, you will be able to monitor them in test day toolkit. At the end, you can dismiss the students. It walks through 4 simple steps. There's only 2 screens for doing this. So it's not rocket science. If you lost the internet and you don't have test day toolkit, it's not difficult to dismiss the students. And your specific dismissal process should have been discussed test coordinators with the proctors. After dismissing, then it's time to report irregularities. If you have none, you click next step. If you have irregularities to report, you click the big button. It then gives large scale, big umbrella descriptions, the one that most closely describes what you saw. You click the plus sign. That again brings you to more granular descriptions, smaller umbrellas. Choose the one that most closely describes what irregularity you saw, click the arrow, and then you have the opportunity to type in what actually happened. If a student chose to leave to exit the exam before finishing, hopefully they raised their hand and brought it to your attention first. But if not, they will also get this prompt warning them that they will lose time even if they come back for test, and saying, why are they going to leave? And that their proctor will have to allow them back in should they choose. The way that you do that is in that monitoring screen. While you're monitoring the test, just check on the student's name. This will pop up and you could click to let the student continue testing. For example, they felt ill, they thought they were going to leave for good, but they got outside in the hall, took a breather, a teacher they like calmed them down, they decided to come back and test. You could let them come back in and continue testing. Students test day screen by screen. Very similar to the digital readiness check, actually. So this is very easy if you did the digital readiness check, which again, you should do for all the reasons we said, but also because you're going to have to do it anyway. So if you didn't do the digital readiness check 1 to 2 weeks in advance, you're going to be doing it first on test day. But if you did do it in advance, this is really simple. They open up Blue Book, click that same yellow button, enter the information from their sign-in ticket. Now this card, instead of saying exam setup, has a button that says check in now. They click that, they get the same confirmation screen to confirm their name and their accommodations. Because you did the digital readiness check, all this information is correct. You click yes, you click next. It will just ask them to confirm whether they're using a school or personal device. And then they get that screen where they enter the 5-letter room code that your proctor will provide from Test Day Toolkit. Once they've entered that, you'll see the exam is downloading. After this, if you lose the internet, they can keep going. They're going to type in their digital test security. Basically, I will not cheat, copying it over. If they have typos or gobbledygook, it doesn't matter. It will accept it. It will tell them to get their desk ready. It's really just a repeat of what they saw during the digital readiness check about what is permitted, what is required, permitted, and allowed on test day. They'll have a short, silent video about how Blue Book works. It will have audio if the student has screen reader or text-to-speech. This is just a time for them to calm down because if you did the digital readiness check, they're already familiar with this. The test overview, again, if you did the digital readiness check, this is old hat. Then they get the opportunity to put in their start code. They put in that 6-digit start code that the proctor provides from Test Day Toolkit, and they start testing. When they are done, they will get a confetti screen. You want to make sure that every student gets the confetti screen, and that if you still have internet, you see them as submitted status and test day toolkit. This is especially critical for students with extended time who might be ending before their full extended time is expired, because those are the students that are often tempted to just slam their laptop shut and head on out, and they didn't let things time out or hit the submit responses button. And so it reads as if they had exited the test. Okay, so make sure you get that confetti screen. I'm not going to go through the physically preparing room staff and students because that really has not changed that much. Okay, and we are at time. It is all in incredible detail in the manuals, the Proctor manuals and guides that are on the CSDE webpage. However, we put it all here in very simple and streamlined manner so that you have it all as a one-stop shop. So you pull up the deck, you will have it here as well. You don't have to go hunting for it in a separate place. And that brings us with a thank you for your patience for our going over a few minutes to the end of our presentation. Michelle?
Thanks, James. Keisha, did you want to jump in about a few things, or I see you popped on?
I believe Dominique will touch on that. She did respond to one of the attendees' questions about the rationale that college about the import. And so Dominique did share that the import via CSV is a new feature for the spring. And this was specifically, I believe, based on when James was sharing the TDTK slides. So just wanted to make sure that was called out before we end today.
And then someone asked, do we have a slide deck to use for the digital readiness check? I feel like maybe we had something last year, but I don't remember. Does that sound familiar?
We had last year created what we call test day toolkit quick guides. And that was because we didn't have these screenshots when we did these presentations. But right now, the slides that I just went through, the digital readiness check screen by screen, that is the same material. So that's
okay.
That's what I
so
would
then
use.
What I can do is pull out those slides and create a PowerPoint and send it to you guys, or post it so it's in PowerPoint form in case you want to add to it or delete to it on the, because if we have it in a PDF, you can't do that. So I'm happy to pull that out for you guys and send it to you. Thank you, James. That was a lot of information, and thanks for the great presentation. If you have any questions, since we're over time, please just, I can do the same for the staff screenshot. So look for something from me, not tomorrow, because believe it or not, the state has a holiday tomorrow to celebrate Lincoln's birthday. So I will get to that on Thursday. But just again, thank you so much. And thanks, James, Keisha, Dominique. Thank you, and Deirdre. Thanks so much. So I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. When is rodeo day, James?
Oh, it was in March. I don't know if it's the same weekend every year, but it's come up in Colorado. It's come up in Idaho. So yeah, it's a thing.
I think we need to push for rodeo day in Connecticut so we can have
I think it's
a school holiday.
I think it's a thing in Arizona too, but I don't work. I haven't worked with Arizona, but I've heard.
Oh, so Stephanie, just before we close, you don't need to enter, if they're going to use a word-to-word dictionary for EL, you don't have to request that as a support. It's only the extended time. So just letting you know. Oh, is there I'm not sure, Kimberly, what your question is, but if staff all did if they did the training in the fall, they just need to do there's like a quiz, so they don't have to be trained again. Okay. And can we start entering EL accommodations? Yeah, go ahead. Enter those ELs if you have them needing 50% extended time. All right, everyone, I'm going to close it now. Just email us if you have questions. So thank you.